Right.
Almost as if you've done it before.
Well, it is. And I have to say that last week, when I was doing an interview with Steve, it didn't work, even though I'd done it loads of times before. So it just goes to show you've got to keep on top of Facebook, because it changes things a little bit to keep you on your toes.
Absolutely.
So I've hit record. So it's all
first job done.
First job done. So let me introduce you. Welcome, Peter, and thank you so much for giving your expertise, your time that you have invested years. I'm not going to make you sound too old in your field as a author. Do tell me when I'm wrong here. Orthopedic doctor and surgeon.
Close enough.
Is it? What's it?
No, that's so close. It's absolutely perfect.
Is it? I'm going to research later and see where you've been very polite. And you've got your own business with your gorgeous wife that I also know, Nikki.
Yeah.
Is it Life Without Limits or Living Without Limits?
Life Without Limits.
I should trust myself. Life Without Limits, which is all about giving.
That side, isn't it?
Yes, it's
mirrored
behind you. Oh yes, it's there.
Just to give you a clue.
Clearly, Life Without Limits, which is all about living life, doing the optimum you can for yourself, your health, your well-being, your mindset, so that you have your life in your body doing its best for you. So you're not accidentally, unconsciously getting in your own way, when a bit of knowledge and a bit of support could get you on the very best tracks. Is that right?
You've done your research really well, Lisa. So
well, I'm very lucky to call you a friend, so it's lazy research. I've sacked it from you, but yes.
No, well, and that friendship is mutually admired, and yes, thank you for inviting me on this evening. Great to be part of the group and to share a little bit about my story and anything else that I can share that might help people make some small changes to improving their health. It's that time of year, isn't it? January, when we want to make a fresh start, and it doesn't have to be a big start. Sometimes just taking one change is all that it takes to set those dominoes rolling in the right direction. Yeah. So yeah, delighted to be here, Lisa.
Oh, thank you, lovely. Well, and there's a few things. One is that I know that yesterday is considered a Blue Monday, the most depressing day of the year. And, I'm led to believe that it's a lot to do with post-Christmas, the fact that people get paid a week early in December, and all the credit card bills, all the debt arrives on that particular Monday. People have made big life-changing decisions. They've spent time with people at Christmas and thought, what am I doing in this life? And they want to make changes that are sometimes less easy to go through than others. And so I thought for this week, the most depressing week of the year, I would get us revved up with two of my favorite bold friends. You have got hair, that's very insulting, but to start,
but not from this angle. I haven't got the hair from any angle, if the truth be known. I thought you said two of your most bold.
That's what I said, bold friends. But so for us to talk about the stuff we can do for our health, that we don't deplete ourselves. And then we've got Paul Steele, who is called the Bold Hiker. I always want to call him the Bold Biker. And we've got him on Thursday, and he's all about being outdoors and adventure and hiking and travel. So I thought if we just fuel this week with a bit of optimism, a little bit of help, then we'd be doing good, because we've got really great people in this group that will either watch live or watch later. And I thought, how can I serve them best? I know I'll wheel out my favourite people. But and with that,
good combination, because I think, you know, nature, being out in nature, it's a really good time to remind people of that, and particularly over the Christmas New Year when we can get a bit stuck indoors, and we don't have to wait for spring to, you know, to put a spring in our step and get outdoors and be healthier. We can start right now.
And with that lovely link of being outdoors, I just want to share with everybody how we first met, and we were at our dear mutual friend Michelle Moot's 50th birthday party, and she had this little this pergola, pergola, and there was only about half a dozen of us in it, and there was you and Nikki, and you and I got talking about your upcoming Clipper, which is such an inspiring thing to have the courage to go and do, and then to do it under the circumstances that we were in. So do you just want to share what the Clipper is, and a little bit about why you did it, and did it change you in any way before we get into surgery?
So the Clipper race, the Clipper Around the World Yacht Race is a race which is held every 2 years, and we're talking pre-pandemic, every 2 years now, but traditionally for probably about 10-15 years now, thereabouts, it's been run every 2 years. 11-12 yachts race each other around the world, not in one go. They take it in various legs and stages, and the winning yacht, each yacht gets a point for where they come on that stage, and then over the course of the year those points add up, and they go across the Atlantic. They then from UK to South America to South Africa, so across the Southern Atlantic. They then go across the notorious and dangerous Southern Ocean, from South Africa to Australia, around Australia.
Hang on, question already. Why is it dangerous?
The Southern Ocean.
Yeah.
So the Southern Ocean. Sorry? Pirates, albatrosses, penguins, vicious.
Have I been watching penguins. Too many movies?
So the Southern Ocean is one of the most extreme weather conditions on our planet. So although the journey from South Africa to Australia is relatively short, 2 and a bit weeks, you are in some of the harshest and most isolated conditions. Wow. With huge waves, high winds, and bitterly cold. So that is a really dangerous place to be on a boat, and not a place most people who have aspirations to sail would ever consider doing. The race, once it's gone around Australia, then goes up through Asia, and then it hits the next biggest, probably one of the toughest parts of the race, which is the North Pacific. And the reason why this is slightly tougher than the Southern Ocean is that it takes at least 3.5 weeks to cross from China to Seattle. You're getting now right up in the north, so you're still getting really cold weather, high winds, really high waves. And there is a point in time as you cross the North Pacific that the nearest other human community is the International Space Station. Wow. That's how far away you are from land. So clearly, if you have a problem on your boat, yes, nobody's coming very quickly to get you. You're relying on the other boats that are with you. And then you go through the Panama Canal, and then you come back across the North Atlantic, back to the UK. And the amazing thing about the Clipper is that it is designed for people who are amateur sailors or people who have no sailing experience whatsoever. So you have a skipper, you have an employed first mate, but the rest of the crew are completely amateur.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's designed specifically to take people who either have no interest in sailing but just want to do something really iconic and really challenging, or people who may have had their own boat and maybe sailed for years but would never go across the North Pacific and the Southern Ocean on their own. This is a way for them to travel those major journeys with the support of a great big organization that has done it for many, many years. So that's what the Clipper is all about. I joined or applied to do the Clipper. Well, interesting story about how I came across the Clipper. Nikki's dad actually did one of the forerunners of the Clipper. It was called some people may have heard of the BT Challenge. This was a very similar race designed for amateurs. And this was going back many, many years ago. Che Blythe organised it. And actually, Nikki's dad did the Southern Ocean leg on one of those back in the 90s. Took a sabbatical from his work as a GP and went and sailed the Southern Ocean. So I had conversations with David about his experiences. I hadn't done much sailing in the past. Nikki and I had sailed with friends before, and I know that I loved it and would like to do some more. But the BT Challenge was no more. They ran out of funding, and I never gave it a moment's thought. And then on a very cold, damp, grey autumn morning, I was travelling down the East Coast Line from York to London for a meeting at the surgical college down there. And at 7 o'clock, it was still grey. It was pouring with rain. And I'll remember to this day, we pulled up outside at Peterborough Station. And as we stopped and I looked out of the window, you could hear the wind and the rain was coming against the window. And as I looked out, all I could see was this huge Clipper poster. I'd never heard of Clipper before. This huge Clipper round the world yacht race poster, with this boat coming out of the waves and the spray and somebody on the front. And with the wind and the rain on that carriage, I genuinely was almost there on that boat with them. And the tagline was, "Do something remarkable."
Oh, I love it. I love it. What a sign. Like, if we're believing signs that, when, I'm working with lots of people at the moment and they want to know what their purpose is and they want to know what their goals are, but they don't want any of the BS goals of, well, I'm going to say this because I've got to write something down. They want to know what it is inside them that enhances who they are, enhances their life, and also the journey in getting their goal is as valuable as the goal.
Yes, absolutely.
And so sometimes you just have to say, just look for the signs, and when you see it, just see how you feel when you see it. And of course, for you, it was a bit like the sign was being bashed over your head. This is it. And so, which leg did you do? Did you do it all, or which part?
I was a very typical male orthopedic surgeon. I spent 6 months wittering about this Clipper race to Nikki. Wouldn't that be interesting? Oh yeah, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't get the time off. Yeah, that'd be really exciting. But oh no, I'm it's just not my cup of tea. And in the end, Nikki said, "Will you either apply or shut up? Because I am sick to death of you wittering and doing nothing." So she gave me the push that I needed, and I took a very typical male response. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do the whole thing, without really considering the implications. It's 12 months away from family, 12 months away from work, 12 months crossing the ocean. In the last, before my race, the previous 2 Clipper races, there had been a total of 3 deaths at sea. So this wasn't something to be undertaken lightly. But I said, I'll do it all.
I'm all in.
All in, and I got accepted to do the race around the world. It was all very exciting. It was a few years ahead, so I didn't really think about it. And then I had to put it on hold because my father died really suddenly and unexpectedly. Lots of support needed from my mum and sisters, and I just wasn't in the right place to be sailing around the world. So Clipper deferred it for me to 2019 for 2 years. So that was great. But more importantly, what it did is it allowed me and Nikki to sit down and have some real conversations about, as you will know from talking people through the goal setting, where is the emotional connection? Why was I doing it? What did I want to get out of it? And I'd never really answered those questions. It was a challenge. It was something that I just felt that I had to do, and I hadn't really thought about it. So I made the decision that actually I didn't want to be away actually for a year. That would, if I said yes to Clipper for a year, I was saying no to my kids for a year, and then no to Nikki for a year, and no to my mum, who was now, you know, on her own, and my two sisters, and actually our world had completely changed. So I decided that I wanted to do leg one. I wanted to experience the race start from London. So I wanted to do leg one. I wanted to sail the ocean. So leg one would give me the Atlantic Ocean. I wanted to travel to places I've not been to. So leg one would also take me to South America. I then decided to do leg 6, which was the North Pacific leg, which was the longest leg on the route. It meant going from China to Seattle, which I hadn't been to. And then after that, I would do leg 7, which would be Seattle through the Panama Canal. And we were scheduled to finish leg 7 in New York. And I would then get off the boat, wave them away back across the Atlantic. And Nikki and I would have a holiday in America. And then mid 2020 would sail back. We booked the Queen Mary cruise. It was going to be a year of adventure, of travel, of excitement, doing different things. And it started off really well. And then kind of March 2020, it all got a bit sticky and started falling apart, as we all know. So yes, I got to do my Atlantic leg, and I'm very grateful. It was an amazing experience, and there were many people who were signed up to do later legs of the Clipper that never got the chance to do it because, of course, everything had to stop in March 2020. And interestingly, they are just about to resume that particular race this March.
Wow.
I'm not rejoining just because family and work commitments, just as most people have probably picked up from the news, the amount of stuff that's going on in the NHS and workload and stuff just means I can't take time off. So it's just not the right time for me. So I will pick it up at some future point in time.
Humanity needs you. You can't go and follow your dreams.
No, absolutely not. And you know, the Atlantic leg was absolute. The whole experience was incredible. Huge highs, huge lows. I ended up being in some dark places at my worst during that trip. Yeah, it was very, very enlightening, and that's why I did it. I wanted to see what I was made of. I guess I wanted to see if I could do it. I wanted to become a better sailor. I wanted to stretch and test myself, and yeah, it certainly did that.
What did you learn or reconfirm or strengthen about yourself as a result of the trip? I mean, first of all, making the decision is pretty massive. Most people don't get to that point where they make the decision. So from the decision to the landing back here, was there an insight?
There's a couple of insights, I think. I think the first bit was almost before I left, which was having to take a step back from the initial goal of doing the whole thing and coming back to what was important to me and what was I saying no to. And that was a really insightful and interesting experience to be able to do that. Because it would have been easy to say, well, I've made this commitment and I'm going to lose face if I don't do it, you know, and people are going to judge me and and actually, you know, Nikki was hugely supportive in terms of me making that decision, and we had a very honest conversation, because she said, you know, I'm for the first time, she said, I'm worried about you going. I'm worried about you not coming back. Actually, I'm not sure I really want you to go. I support you, and really, you know, if you want to go, you're going to go. That's fine. But if I've got any influence, I'd rather you didn't go for the full year. And when your soulmate tells you that, you need to listen, don't you? And she was absolutely right, because actually deep down, I didn't want to go for the new year. For the whole year, I'd just made that commitment and felt so I had to stick to it. Whilst I was away, I think there was a couple of things that struck me. One was being comfortable with contradiction. Sounds really interesting, but we were on a relatively small boat, 70 foot, it sounds big, but when you've got 20 plus people there and you're living on top of each other, it's not very big at all. And there were large portions of that trip across the Atlantic where we didn't see land or another boat for days at end. All we saw was just sea and the horizon all around us. And on one level, you were in this cramped boat, but on the other level, you had a sense of scale and space and how vast the oceans and the world really is and how small we are. And how unimportant the vast majority of things that we stress and worry about, how unimportant they really are.
Give me an example of one of the things that you felt about some of the things that maybe you thought were important that you then put into some perspective.
I think social media, well, I'm not a great fan of social media, but emails and text messaging and communication with Nikki, we had the ability to communicate through satellite emails. So every 3 or 4 days, the satellite would pass over and it would upload any emails that we'd written, and it would download any emails that had been sent to us. So Nikki would collate messages and I would get an email, and then 4 days later, I would send an email back to her, and then 4 days later, I'd get an email back from her, and that type of thing. And what was really interesting is it's probably the first time I've written to my wife in any meaningful way, cards and that type of thing. But this was the first time we'd been apart for a significant period of time. And it gave me a real sense of what it must have been like a generation ago when people wrote letters to each other.
Yeah.
And actually, it was something really beautiful. I know we were doing it by email and via satellite, but that communication that meant that you sent something out and you had to wait a couple of days, 3 or 4 days or whatever, before you got a reply, was actually meant that communication was much more valuable. And I don't think I'd really appreciated the value that we have as humans in terms of that communication and how modern technology has almost saturated the community. We get too much communication now, and we lose the important bit in all of the other rubbish.
I couldn't agree more. I was just saying last night to someone that I really wish that we could not have mobile phones.
Yeah.
I really wish that because I just see that they've caused stress everywhere. Everybody's multitasking, everybody's doing an email and on the phone, and I text you, why didn't you text back? Or not to me, but there's so many demands as a result of this tiny, very expensive device that we used to go and knock on people's door and say, "You're right, do you want to come round to a cup of tea?" And we would ring people on the landline. We'd meet under Marx's clock at 6 o'clock. We'd value people's attention so much more than we do now. And I also think even all the commerce that's been generated from it, brilliant. But have we made the planet a better place? And this is something that I've been really inside about, like humanity. Right, I'm on a bit of a rant. No stopping me, and I've not even had coffee. But my point is that humans think they own the planet, think that they own land. The land does not belong to us. It belongs to the animals. We get to coexist with them, but somehow we've carved it up, we've owned it, we fight over pieces of land, we work our whatnots off to pay for the box that's on the land in a job that some people don't love. And I just think that if we just went back, I mean, I know we'd all be dead by 35, but I think that we treat the world like we own it, and we don't. Well, we do, but we don't.
And it's a useful reminder that those things that we have got so used to, we need, you need very little to get real pleasure and joy out of life. You need good friends around you. Yes, we need
community, like that tribal community where took a village to raise children.
We need a bit of uncertainty. We need a bit of stretching and growth and adventure. And I think all of us on that race, all of the crew, whatever boat they were on, I think we all learned that we are far more resilient than we thought we were. I learned that the world, the oceans, the sky has, Mother Nature is absolutely incredible. The beauty out there is just unreal. The sunrises and the sunsets, but the sunrises particularly when you've been sailing overnight and you've had the stars, and then there's just that glint of grey over the horizon, and that grey turns to a slight blue and then an orange as the sun begins to rise. It is absolutely, to be able to sit or sail or whatever, but just watch that happen. We don't experience that very often. We're either in the office or we're in bed or we're on the train or whatever, and the sun rises, or if you're in York, it's behind clouds, so you don't get to see it much anyway. But actually to see that happening, you can see why, generations, hundreds of years ago, people just thought this is a new day. It was very spiritual, experiencing some of those things. And yes, and very exciting at times too, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what your next adventure might be. Sometimes our next adventures don't need to take us to the side of the world. They can just be right on our doorstep, which we'll come to towards the end of our conversation. And what we got a little comment in from Teresa Marie Brindley. Do you know Teresa?
I don't think we do, Teresa. I apologise if we have met, but I don't.
Well, this is what she says. How funny, I was at that party too. We must have missed each other. Now, I don't know if she's talking to me or you.
Or
but,
both of us.
Michelle, or both of us, because she was.
Party.
So Teresa's part of this wonderful community. She's a wonderful participant and contributor. She's been on one of my fire walks with her two daughters and daughter-in-law. She brought 3 girls, and she's also coming to Base Camp Everest.
Oh, fantastic!
Let's thank you so much for sharing that adventure, because I just love it when we hear a story of someone having the courage to say yes, but also that what I loved about part of what you were saying is in this yes, in this big yes, this full yes of 12 months, what am I saying no to? Yeah. And how can I still say yes without saying no to these other things that are actually more important in my life? So I love that kind of process. And then just a little bit about you as a surgeon. Tell us a little bit about that and what your medical life is like today.
Okay, so surgery is my career. That's basically the career that I chose after I qualified as a doctor, which is many years ago. But I've basically been a consultant orthopedic surgeon in York for rather frighteningly over 25 years, which is quite scary.
Say it fast.
Well, I can't avoid it because my second son was born. My second son was born a week after I started as a consultant at York. So every birthday he has reminds me that
it's another year.
So my interests have been largely hips and knees, back pain, do a lot of hip replacements, knee replacements, see a lot of patients around helping them with the back. And for many years we used to do an awful lot of trauma as well. And I continue to work as an orthopedic surgeon, but I mentioned a little bit earlier in terms of the changing world, my personal world, when my father died suddenly. And not only prompted me to change my plans around Clipper, it was a real wake-up call. My dad was the second of 2 first one was a close friend, and then my dad, who died really suddenly and unexpectedly. And I wasn't going to wait for the third sign to remind me of the frailty and shortness of life. So yes, it galvanized me to do the Clipper, but in a different way. But it also galvanized me to take a broader look at my work-life balance and what I wanted in the latter half of my career. And what I knew deep down was that whilst I didn't want to stop operating, I did not want to do it full time. There were other areas that I wanted to explore. There were other professional interests that I had around health and well-being that were complementary to my orthopedic surgery, but I just couldn't explore, didn't have the time and the space, and the NHS wasn't the environment for that. So 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, I made the decision to go part-time. And I now work part-time as a part-time independent orthopedic surgeon, seeing NHS patients. But as we were talking earlier, in another aspect, seeing those patients on my terms, so that I can organize my life so that I can provide value, but actually I'm ensuring I'm getting the most out of it. I think I've reached that stage in life, Lisa, where I've realized that the most valuable commodity that we have is time, not money.
No doubt.
And I wanted to ensure that I made changes that would allow me to do that. So I now work 2 days a week as an orthopedic surgeon. And then the other 3 days a week is when I work alongside my wife, Nikki. Nikki's a former nurse and is a qualified holistic health coach and has done extra qualifications in nutrition. So between us, we have built on our conventional medical and NHS experience and expertise to bring in these other things around holistic healthcare. I've qualified as a lifestyle medic. So all about trying to help individuals and families improve their health by improving their lifestyle, helping them to understand the benefits of different lifestyles, different choices, different habits, but more importantly, supporting and helping them changing those habits that they want to change, and then supporting them through that process, because changing habits isn't easy, of course, as we all know. Many people start the gym in January and by February, it's all finished. So we work with our clients over a period of time to not only educate, but more importantly, to empower them to make those right choices that are going to serve them, and supporting them through that process. And it's really rewarding.
Yeah. There's nothing like helping people help themselves. And right. So, you got a drink? In terms of, so for this part of the year, we're in January, we've had a lovely Christmas. We've not only got Christmas pounds, but we've got lockdown pounds.
COVID curves, we call them.
Lockdown curves.
COVID curves.
COVID curves. And so what are some of the key things that you're seeing people challenged with or struggle with at this time of the year that maybe some of our lovely members in this group are also being able to identify with? What are some of the challenges that people have in January? So
I think one of the most common challenges we come across is that the vast majority of people that we speak to they desperately want to be healthier. They understand that perhaps they aren't making always the right choices, and they know that that's having an impact on their energy levels, and it might be having an impact on some health challenges that most of us have kind of just learned to live with: the backaches, the skin complaints, the digestive issues, the migraines, all those sorts of things. What we see is that most people are struggling because they don't know which is the right information to follow. Because going back to the communication thing that we were talking about, the issue we were talking about earlier now, information is the same. There's so much information out there, and particularly health information is often very contradictory. And people just don't know which is the right way to go for them. So yes, that's one of the things that we can help people with, is trying to shift through and sift the wheat from the chaff that is valuable for them as an individual. But a lot of clients are coming to us this time just because they want to get back on track. They've recognized that, not just, as you rightly said, not just over Christmas and New Year, but actually on the back of the last 2 years, things like eating habits, the dietary patterns, the amount of movement that people do, the knock-on effect of those in terms of our mood and our mental health, in terms of how we sleep, and how we sleep then impacts on our mood, and then our mood impacts on what we eat and what choices we make, which impacts on how we sleep, and that impacts on whether we move. And there's this interrelationship going on all of the time. And for a lot of our clients, that just becomes really overwhelming, and they just don't know where to start. So what we do is try and help them to unpick that and recognize that actually we can use that interaction and the interrelationship of all those things to our advantage. Because if we just change one thing, then actually that's going to have a positive effect on those other things as well over time.
So in terms of people that are watching here, have you got 5 tips that they can put into practice themselves as a result of being enlightened tonight?
Okay, let me give you my top.
I feel like I ought to go into Tony Blackburn. So starting at the top at number 5.
Do you have the soundtrack?
No,
anyway.
nor the accent. I should.
So a couple of caveats then, I suppose, to say. First of all is that there is no magic sauce. There's no secret sauce, magic formula. This is probably stuff that most of you will have heard before. And indeed, some of it you're probably already doing. But sometimes repetition and reminders can be really helpful, particularly at this time of year. The second caveat is...
Well, the other thing, Peter, is I think sometimes we hear things from people and they're not the right person to hear them from. And then they might hear them from you and think, do you know what? He's not half bad. I might follow that advice that I've been being told to do by my mother-in-law for 30 years. I might just follow that advice because it's come from Peter and he was all right. Right time, right place.
And exactly on that point is that I don't know that the members of your group who are listening to this, we obviously don't know what their health challenges are. Yeah. And everybody is different. One of our principles is that one size does not fit all. That's why we provide a very personalized approach, because what works for your mate may not work for you. What works for the latest celebrity fad might not work for you. It might, but it might not. So some of what I say might work for you, but the principles are largely the same. So I think probably tip number 1 would be just be more mindful of how you are fueling your body. Okay, that sounds a bit generic, but I bet most of you, when you go and fill your car up, make absolutely sure you've either got the right diesel or the unleaded, and you're not absent-mindedly just picking up the nearest pump and filling your car with it. You only make that mistake once, in my experience, of putting the wrong fuel in your car. But how many times do we check the label on the packets that we're putting into our shopping trolley? So I would say be more mindful of how you're feeling your body. Wherever possible, eat real food.
Is this step 2 or is this in step 1?
No, this is part of fueling your body. This is tip. So what do we mean by how do we fuel ourselves better? So real food. Avoid, where you can, highly processed food. Anything that comes in a packet with an ingredient list of more than 6 things on it, really you probably don't want to be eating. It's probably going to be more chemical than nutritional for you. So real food, source it locally, eat it seasonally, are the key things about fueling your body. Start taking an interest in not the marketing on the front of the things you buy, but actually the labels on the back. And you might be amazed at how much hidden sugar there is in some of this stuff, how much additives and seed oils and those types of things.
And the font is getting smaller and smaller. So you have to take your magnifying
I thought it might have been my eyes, but
I think it's so that we don't bother looking at it, but I think it's both. I think it's so we don't bother looking and our blessed aging.
yes. So that would be the first thing. Would be about consider how you're fueling your body. The second most important thing is to consider how much you are moving on a daily basis.
Can I just go back a step then? Because I wondered if step 2 was going to be this, which is how you're fueling your body. But in the how, does that include the when, or is that a separate point?
As in how you prepare the food?
No, no, as in the frequency of when you eat and the time of the day that you eat, and whether you need gaps and stuff.
Okay,
is that a factor?
So that is very, very variable. And I don't think there is absolutely one size fits all. Generally I'll come on to that because my number 1 tip relates to that a little bit. So let me come on to that. So whether you're a grazer or or whether you're somebody who just has 2 meals a day or 3 meals a day, generally eating between meals is generally not going to serve you. It's a sign that because you're likely to be not eating the right stuff, it's probably a sign you're not having a proper meal. And when we come talk about fueling your body properly, the only other little tip in there, as well as labels, is for most people, we don't eat enough protein and we don't eat enough greens. And
protein being other things as well as meat, or particularly meat.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, no, it doesn't have to be meat. I mean, obviously, most protein in our diet is from an animal source. But if you don't eat animal products, then you have to be really, 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 really organized and plan to make sure that you're getting enough protein. And it can be done, but if you're a vegetarian and you're eating fish, that's not quite so bad. But if you're vegan and you're not eating any dairy products, any meat products, any fish, then you have to be absolutely scrupulous about making sure you're having protein in some form with each meal. Otherwise,
and is that beans? Is protein in beans?
Legumes, beans, lentils.
Legumes, that's the word I was looking for.
So yes, because we need protein.
Yeah.
It's a very basic building block.
Yeah, got you. Okay. Step two.
How much are you moving? Really, how much are you moving on a daily basis? Every generation goes past, we are becoming more sedate than the generation before us. And a sedentary lifestyle now is thought to be responsible for more deaths than smoking. And it's not about doing the park run once a week. It's not about going to the gym twice a week. It's actually about how often you get off your backside during the day and move and do some stretching and walk up and down the stairs. And with lockdown, people working from home, even when we don't work from home, we're at office space. So just think about, actually, how am I moving? What can I do to make my general movement during the day better? That might be doing some stretches first thing in the morning, and it might be doing some stretches or something when you get home before you have your evening meal. Having an alarm, other wearable devices, Fitbits, Apple phones, all that type of stuff. As long as you don't get obsessive about them, they can be really helpful at just giving you an indicator of how mobile you are. Can set an alarm every hour to go off, so you get up and you.
Or every time you put the kettle on to do some lunges.
Exactly.
Because that's one of the things that I decided to do. Only I was doing squats, and I was trying to get 100 squats in a day. So every time I flicked the kettle on, I thought I'll use the length of time the kettle boils to do some squats. Oh, day 3, I could flipping walk.
But it's so much easier to adopt a new habit if you can piggyback it onto the habit you've already got. And it's interesting because a client I saw last week, I had exactly the conversation with him. about, we've addressed a number of nutritional things. He wants to be more mobile. He wants to be more active. And we talked about exactly that. When you put the kettle on, you do 5 minutes of exercises. And whether you need to use the stairs or not, every hour you go up the stairs and down again.
Yeah, yeah.
As a starting point of building his strength and stamina.
And I guess another, do you think that the 10,000 steps a day is enough or too much, or just?
I think it's really important we don't get hung up on the numbers.
Because that's a little kind of, seems to be the gauge that's in all the apps, isn't it? Or I've done me 10,000 steps, and I thought, where did that ever? But that's better than nothing, isn't it?
It's as good as anything, and it's better than 2,000.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want anyone to beat themselves up just because they're doing 8.5.
No.
So it is about, for you, and could you? Most of us could do more than we're doing, and if this doesn't apply, then that's fine. But most of us, I think, if we're honest with ourselves, we don't even. Everything is sedentary, isn't it? Our transport is sedentary, our work is sedentary, our entertainment is sedentary.
We used to walk everywhere, didn't we? And go on the bike, cycle everywhere.
Yeah. Or at the very least, you had to walk to turn over the channel on your TV.
Or also,
you don't even have to do that now.
Central locking on the car.
You don't have to do that.
I mean, flipping heck.
So movement, and we're not talking about exercise. We're not talking. There's a big difference between fitness and health.
Yeah.
And it's been well shown that going to the gym twice a week has less of an impact on your life expectancy than your sedentary lifestyle. So if you move more during the day, you are likely to live longer than somebody who is sedentary all day but goes to the gym twice a week.
Yeah. I've got lovely Liz Felstead, who's a dear friend and coming to Base Camp Everest.
Oh,
she's fit as a bloody fiddle, is our lovely Liz. She says, I'm walking now. I don't know if she means she's literally walking now, which is a possibility, or whether she's got into walking now because she's getting ready for Everest. But that is, I mean, I know that we've got Paul speaking on Thursday about the value of walking and being outside. Yeah. But the getting out and walking around the block, in some way, whilst it's good for the movement part, it's also good for my life. I haven't just given my life to work. Yeah. When I get out of the house and walk around the block, at least there's been something for me, especially, with those that are locked in and locked down. And but also what some people did, and if they might be working from home now, they might have thought, oh yeah, I used to do that when I get back into habit, is the commute time that people had that they then didn't have because they were sat in. They used that to either do a walk for that length of time so that they had it back for themselves.
Yes. Yeah. And we talk about that with clients all the time, about reinstating the commute. And that can be going for a walk. It can be doing some yoga or Pilates or something at home. It might be actually doing a meditation at the end of the day, or reading a chapter of your favorite novel, as you would do on the train.
Yeah.
We've lost in lockdown and working from home the ability to separate work and family. They've just become so close that they've merged. And I don't think that's healthy for us. It's not healthy for our partners. And it's certainly not healthy for the kids. We need to reinstate that commuting buffer.
Well, that also, the commute got us prepared for work. So it got us to leave the house. Bye everyone, love you. Usually 2 dogs for me. Get mentally prepared for the day ahead, and then the commute home was so that we're left behind the stress that we had at work. Got home, opened the door, kissed the 2 dogs, the wife, the kids, having left the stress behind. But I think what's happening now is the stress is being overlaid onto the faces. It's, we create anchors, have a conversation, do a cup of tea, no, difficult conversation at work, turn around, look, and then there's the wife's face, so you get anger, wife's face, and then you get to see the wife's face and think, I'll just feel angry, because that's how anchors build up. So I think all of that, I don't know what the word is, not collapsing, but all it's collapsing when you take it away, but all that build up of,
it's just it reinforces, doesn't it? And we're not giving ourselves space to cleanse ourselves from work before we get home.
Absolutely. So the movement is not only good to keep this wonderful body we're gifted with moving, but it's also good for our sanity.
Absolutely. And the sanity of those that we live with.
Exactly. Walk time, get out my hair. Right, step 3.
So number 3, I think, is we've talked about nutrition or fueling. We've talked about moving. What people forget about is resting.
Yeah, love it.
So rest and recovery. And of course, the key element for rest and recovery, where we do most of our rest and repair, is sleep.
Yeah.
And a lot of our clients have issues with their sleep. And again, there's some common themes here: technology, working from home, not being able to switch off. And a lot of the time we're talking with clients about how they can manage that, and particularly how they manage the last hour before they go to bed.
Yeah.
Anybody on the call tonight who's had either has or have had young children will know that the best way to get a child to sleep on a regular basis is to have a routine.
Brandy. No.
That might be yours.
Are you glad I don't have children?
You wouldn't be the first, and you won't be the last.
If they don't want it, drinking yourself. But yeah, I know what you mean, that kind of quiet time. Don't start jiggling them around or getting them excited or stimulated. Like, wind down the stimulation, turn the lights.
Pajamas, story, hot milk.
Yeah.
And by the time they get into bed,
no wonder you didn't want to go away for a year. Who was going to put your pajamas ready and your hot milk and read you a story? I can see why you decided.
I do it for Nikki every night.
Reading a bedtime story, Barry. No, I'm doing a few weeks and that's it. But yeah, sorry, I'm joking.
So that's important. So for people who are experiencers, for people who struggle with their sleep, it's because they haven't got themselves their own bedtime, nighttime routine. On their emails, they are maybe drinking caffeine too late. Maybe they've still got a lot of stuff going on in their heads from work, and they're not journaling and not able to write it down and offload it. Getting the lights a little bit, lowering the lights, having some music come on, maybe the last half hour before to go to bed, turn the telly off and read a book. If you were managing your inner child, I want you to get in touch with when you think about bedtime, and see if you can get that nighttime routine back again. Yeah,
and it's about being soothing to yourself, isn't it? Like, if I was to be really soothing to Lisa, what do I want? What do I want that's really soothing and good for me? And asking yourself that, what soothes me to sleep? Yeah.
And it will be different for everybody, but it's rarely Facebook, I have to say.
Yeah.
Or Insta.
Doom scrolling. Yeah.
So think about sleep. So those are the 3 things, the top 3 things.
Can I just ask something about sleep?
Yeah.
Tony Robbins, the big man.
The man himself, yes.
The man, the giant.
Yes.
If I've got this correctly, because it was 17 years ago, I was at his Unleash the Power Within. I think he says you don't need any more than 6 hours sleep. Well, what's your thoughts?
So my thoughts are that most people will need somewhere between 7 to 8 hours a night. There inevitably will be some people who can survive on less, but there's a difference between thinking that you are surviving on less sleep and your body building up problems for later in life. So there's also a difference between those people who sleep for 4 or 5 hours overnight and then will have a couple of power naps during the day. absolutely fine. That's the way that you manage your sleep debt. But there's a real term now that's called sleep debt, whereby if you're not having enough sleep, the sleep debt, like an overdraft, will just accrue and accrue, and you can never catch up unless you catch up within 24 to 48 hours. So having a really busy week and saying, it's okay, I'll have a lie-in on Sunday, doesn't provide any, won't eradicate the health detriment of your sleep debt just by having a lie-in on Sunday. What it will probably do is mean you don't sleep very well on Sunday night.
Yeah.
And therefore you're feeling knackered when you go to work on Monday morning. And so you're back in that cycle of poor sleep, not focusing, not being productive. And so you think, oh, it's okay, I'll just sleep in again on Sunday.
Yeah.
And you just repeat the same pattern all over again. So most people, it's around about 7 to 8 hours. And it's, the evidence is fairly clear that if you equate hours of sleep with ill health, consistently sleeping less than 6 hours a night is linked with significant health issues. But in terms of current health issues, cardiac issues, those sorts of things, heart issues, but also longevity.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you.
So a lot of our healing, a lot of our repair, both psychological and physiological, all of that, most of that is going to happen whilst we're asleep.
Yeah.
And your grandmother was right. An hour before midnight is worth 2 afterwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that is so interesting. Hour before, worth 2 hours.
So really, we try and get most of our clients heading up to bed at 10, 10:30, lights out, 11, 11:30. If you're consistently going to bed after midnight, that will build up. Even if you're getting 8 hours, the quality is not as good. It's not just about quantity, it's about quality when it comes to sleep.
Because there's something about, I don't know the terminology, but about the light activating our wake up cells.
Yes.
The sunlight. I've put that completely in Lisa's speak. What's the expert speak around it?
So light's really interesting, but light can be helpful in late afternoon. We're going back to getting out and going for a walk. If you get sunlight during the day, you're more likely to sleep better that night. Oh,
brilliant advice.
One of the challenges is when we sleep is that the depth of our sleep naturally varies over the course of a night that we're asleep. And in the summer months, when it gets light really early, if we come out into a light part of sleep and we become aware of the light, that can then start to stimulate the brain to think, oh, it's morning, it's time to get up. It might only be 5:30. And you don't have to get up till 6:30 or 7 o'clock. Could be earlier, of course, depending on where you live. So one of the interesting things, and one of the things that we often will say to clients who are struggling to sleep, is don't be afraid to wear earplugs and an eye mask when you go to bed. A simple eye mask will make an incredible amount of difference to how long you sleep for. It's amazing. They're starting now, lots of ITUs, intensive care units in hospitals, are giving patients eye masks, because obviously there's lots of lights and stuff going on. They can't always have it, helping sleep. In a lot of military, supply eye masks for the soldiers so that when they're cat napping and sleeping, the quality is going to be better. So if you are struggling with your sleep and you find that you're waking early, then treat yourself.
I have blackout
blinds.
I have blackout curtains that go inside my curtains.
Yeah.
Because I can't bear the light getting in, because it just makes me feel like, it makes me feel like I should be doing something else, lying here in daylight, and everybody, the world's moving
without me.
I'm not moving with it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant advice.
So that's worth thinking about. Where are we up to?
4.
So 4. So 4 is, don't forget about taking time out for you. We live in a really, really busy, fretful, overstimulated, activity-focused world.
Yeah.
And we sometimes forget that we are human beings, not human doings. And it's really important to take time out for yourself. It's really important to learn to be comfortable with your own company, to learn how we can calm some of the stress hormones and stuff that's going around. People often get confused between the term stress and the clients that we work with, and I think it's probably similar with you, Lisa, are often very capable, successful people in their businesses in their own right. But they don't get stressed. They eat stress for breakfast. It's what drives them and thrives on them. Well, they might not feel stressed emotionally, but the way that their body behaves in order to allow them to multitask and drive forward and be focused and be always on the go, they might as well feel stressed because the physiological response is exactly the same. Our adrenaline's up and our cortisol is up. And if those things are up, then the rest of our body, our immune system, our thyroid system, our digestive system, all of that stuff has to slow down, because the body is designed to give all of the emergency funds to our stress hormones, because that's our survival.
And I think because people think, well, nothing wrong with me, I'm handling it, you're just going to get on with it. I always find that a bit of BS, actually, when people say, no, you're just going to get on with it. And I think, what are you not wanting to stop and see about your life that you just want to plow through it? And that's not, I guess I'm saying it almost quite critically, because the people that are saying you're just going to get on with it are forcing that attitude upon others, but really they're in some sort of denial and therefore pain on some level, that they think that pushing through is the only way, and if they stop, then what am I going to see? And
I think you're absolutely, I would agree with that. I think the other thing is that they are storing up trouble. The biggest cause of heart attacks is stress. It's not people thinking they are stressed. It's people who are busy, achieving, doing, active, loud, focused all the time, not spending enough time. Okay, I've caught the elephant. I now need to go to the back of the cave and just relax and recharge the batteries. We don't do that enough. So take time out. I would find half an hour somewhere in your day for you to breathe, to meditate, to just slow down.
And we have retreats for a reason, but we don't have to go to a retreat. We can create our own retreat, can't we? We can have a space in the house that we think, when I'm sat in this chair, nobody disturb me. I'm going to light my candle and I'm going to decompress. I think it's one of the hardest things for people to do is to stop. And when they're stopped, to not stop and be on their phone, like to completely just sit with themselves and just allow their body to reintegrate and catch up with what the mind has put it through.
And it is hard, and sometimes it's just about doing it for 5 minutes.
At least start with that.
Just start with 5 minutes, but start doing it and just do it every day. Get yourself one of those little wall charts, again, that we get the inner child, and every time you do 5 minutes, you put a little star and give yourself a gold star, and just don't break the chain. Even 5 minutes before you go to bed, because you haven't had a chance. 5 minutes every day. Then make it 10, then make it 15.
Can I guess what number 5 is?
You can.
Let's see. If anybody's here watching, does anybody want to say what number 5 is? I'm going to guess it. The child in me. You said get in touch with your inner child. It was pretty instant. Is it water?
Oh, very good. Very good. Water is part of it. I like that.
Gin. Whiskey.
I'm waiting to see if there are any more comments. No, nobody else coming through.
No, and sometimes there's a delay as well.
and I can't remember what we touched on earlier on. Oh, earlier on you asked about timing of eating.
Yes.
So my number one tip, and actually it's a bit of a bonus or a cheat, because actually it's 3 in 1. But my number one tip is, how do you start your day?
Oh.
Starting your day in the right way is absolutely fundamental. And there are 3 things that you need to consider when you start your day.
Yeah.
First one is Lisa's speciality, which is, what do I think?
All right. I was really worried that you knew.
Gin. You thought I was going to mention the gin again then, didn't you? No, I've promised I wouldn't mention that. So the first thing is, what do you think? Have you set your intentions? You know, are you starting the day really appreciating the things around you, but appreciating yourself? Really appreciating the power you have to ensure that your day goes the way that you want it. So what are your thoughts like when you start the day? The second part of that is Lisa's top tip, which is, you've just spent 7 or 8 hours not eating or drinking. The first thing that you put into your body is really key as to how your body behaves over the rest of the day. So what do you drink first? Do you fill it with caffeine? Or could you perhaps get a nice big glass of cool water?
Yeah.
Whilst the kettle's boiling.
Yeah. And you're doing the squats. Do
your squats, have a large glass of water before you start having anything else. So you're less likely to get into it's going to help with your hunger signals, but more importantly, you're starting to hydrate your body in the right way.
Oh, so good. And
then the last thing is, what are you going to eat? So what are you going to think? What are you going to drink? I couldn't find anything to rhyme for eat, but if any of your group can come up, think, drink, and eat. So what are you going to have? What are you going to eat? Because your breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Because if it is very sugary, toast, starchy carbohydrate, that's what your body's going to want for the rest of the day. It's going to want sugary, starchy carbohydrates. If it's protein and vegetables, people look at me and say, vegetables for breakfast?
Oh, yeah.
It's just
avocado, asparagus, eggs.
Some of the asparagus that you cooked the night before, bit of broccoli that you had the night before, or bit of Cavolo Nero that you had the night before. Reheat it.
Is that not wine?
Cavolo Nero.
I know.
You don't have Cavolo Nero.
It sounds like a wine to me. I don't even drink. I don't know why I'm talking about alcohol.
How would you know?
Exactly. What do I know?
Black cabbage, Cavolo Nero. It's very nutritious.
It's very irony, isn't it?
Very irony. Lots of vitamin B, lots of iron in it. Really good. Leafy greens we don't get enough of. Leafy greens.
I've when I said what what do you start the day off? And I said, let me guess. And Liz Spelstead, she's such a rebel. She's just put a glass of wine. That's how she starts the day. I think, though, that I've led her down that garden path. And then Teresa said, thank you, smiley face, thought-provoking, neat head off. Blimey, people stayed to the end. Not bit that.
Lordy.
That sounded like I was surprised that somebody stuck around. Yes. So eat. What to eat? What do you eat for breakfast?
So, well, 2 things about eat. You don't have to have breakfast at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Okay, it's not important. What's important is not when you have breakfast. It's what you have for breakfast. And going back to your points earlier on, Lisa, there are undoubtedly some health benefits from constricting our eating time into a smaller window and having a larger part of our 24-hour day when we fast. So if you're still munching at 10 o'clock at night, and then at 4:30 in the morning, you're having your breakfast, the body and the gut in particular just hasn't had time to recover, hasn't had time to rest. And it just doesn't start the day in an efficient way.
Yeah.
So you can extend to at least 12 hours between when you finish eating the night before and eat the next day is ideal. So getting people out of the habit of get up, if you want a big glass of water, cup of your favorite char, but maybe not have breakfast till a little bit later. You don't have to have it. Now, clearly, everybody's circumstances, schedule, routine is different. But if you go to having an early breakfast, then just remember that you could do having an earlier tea.
Yeah.
So that's important. And protein is really important in the morning.
Oh, right.
Really,
there's a saying, isn't there? Breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. Yeah. Is there any value in that?
Yes, absolutely. When you think about it, most of our activity is during our waking hours. So we need to pre-fuel ourselves and preload ourselves. And protein is the thing that most people don't get enough of at breakfast. It's all, it's all toast and cereal.
And quite often it's what people can eat on the go.
Yes. And there is something about
sandwiches were made, weren't they? They were made so that people could eat.
Yes, they weren't made because they were healthy.
Yeah.
They were made because they were convenient. And what we try and help people understand is that your health is not a convenience.
No.
Health and convenience, your health is more important than that. It takes a little bit of thought. It takes a little bit of commitment. And we don't get it right all the time. It's 80-20 as always. It's not about not having treats. And yes, of course, a bit of dark chocolate, occasional glass of red wine, all very healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think quite often people have been conditioned into changing their life providing it's easy. And so if it's not easy, if it's going to disrupt me, if it's going to mean that I'm going to have to go out my way, I'm not really up for it. I'm not saying that those people in this Be Unstoppable Club, I doubt that they are, and I doubt the people they're the people that we know in our circle, but certainly the people we know might know people that are like that. And the thing is, we're only going to get out of life what we're willing to put in. And I know that's cliche, but it is so true. But what I do know is the return on investment is infinite. I know when people invest their time in their well-being, in the being bothered to chop all that veg that then produces a feast for 3 days, that fuel, the value of that fuel gives them that lightness, that brightness, never mind being fixated on the scales, but lightness, brightness, great attitude, sharp brain, feeling on it, like they're up for it, they're saying yes to things instead of, I'd rather be in my pajamas. So the investment in time for what it takes to get the right food and prepare it, and then that time to retreat and meditate, all of that massively pays out. It massively, way beyond the level of time it took to create it. So the return on investment is A, you're the ultimate benefactor, and B, it lasts much longer than the time it takes to do it.
And the challenge that we face is that those benefits are in the future, and it requires an investment of time in the present to get that benefit in the future. And there is also needing to be recognised that actually, from an environmental, cultural, societal point of view, it's not easy for people to make the right healthy choices at the moment.
Yeah.
It is increasingly difficult for families, for mums who are, holding down a couple of jobs as well as looking after the kids, maybe not have a huge amount of disposable income, to be able to not be swayed by the marketing that's out there about what is and what isn't healthy, about convenience food, because they have to get to work, the kids have to get to school. And we don't make it, as society, we don't make it easy for people to make the right choices. And that's something that, if we want to, if we want to save the NHS, if we want to improve this country's health, then actually we need to do something on a much bigger scale at making those choices easier instead of making them more difficult.
I agree totally. And we've got Lyndon, lovely Lyndon, has said, all very straightforward, common sense, no fads, brilliant, thank you. Thank you so much, darling. I realise that we've had loads of your time tonight. Before you go, though, and release you to normality, I would like to just plug, you've got an event in York. So if you're in, you don't have to be in York, you can go out of your way and come to it. It's on the
York is a beautiful place to come and visit.
It is. 1st of February, 7th.
6 o'clock registration. We will be casting off at 6:30.
Oh, I like what you did.
For the high seas.
I see. And what's the title?
I will promise to have you back safely in harbour by 8 o'clock.
Love it. How can you?
And the title is Swapping Scalpels for Sales. It's a journey of my Clipper experience, the highs, the lows, the personal insights, and hopefully a sprinkling of inspiration to maybe help people listen to the inner voice, the inner whisper about maybe what is your adventure that you always wish you could do, and maybe explore the reasons why not. So hopefully it'll be engaging, entertaining, interesting, a little bit inspiring. So if you, it's at the York Marriott, it's on Tuesday, the 1st of February. We do need to secure tickets for numbers. As you can imagine, numbers have to be obviously limited for obvious reasons at the moment. But I'm sure, Lisa, you can post the link.
Yeah, give me the link. I'll put it in here, and people could.
That'd be great, and it'd be great to see some of the group in person.
Yeah, they can get to see you in the flesh. Thank you so much.
It's a real pleasure, Lisa.
And if I find that there's more questions, then we'll get you back and hone in on perhaps a niche or something.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, sounds great.
Amazing. Thank you, darling. I appreciate you so much. I'm sending you loads of love.
You too. Bye, everybody. Have a nice evening. Take care. Bye.